If there's one thing I've learned watching men sabotage themselves over and over, it's this. The harder you try to be chosen, the faster you're disqualified. You lean in, you over-explain, you show effort like it's a resume, and something in her eyes shuts off. Not anger, not disgust, just a quiet loss of interest that you can't argue with. You're left confused, replaying every message, wondering which word did it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stop triggering that shutdown and what to replace it with instead. Right now, you think attraction works like effort equals results. That if you just show more care, more attention, more emotional availability, eventually she'll see your value. That belief feels logical. It's also the fastest way to make yourself invisible, because attraction doesn't respond to effort the way respect or productivity does. It responds to tension, to polarity, to the feeling that you are complete without needing anything back. The moment your behavior starts asking instead of offering, the dynamic flips. You stop being a man moving through his life and become a man waiting for permission. Picture this. You're sitting across from her, coffee cooling between your hands. She's talking about her week, and you're nodding a little too much. You're leaning forward, tracking every word, afraid that if you miss something, you'll lose ground. Inside your head, there's a quiet chant. Don't mess this up. Say the right thing. Be interesting, but not arrogant. Nice, but not boring. You laugh half a second too fast at her joke. You agree a little too eagerly. And she feels it, not consciously. She just feels a pressure where there should be space. Her body reads it as need, even if your words are perfect. The mistake isn't that you care. It's that your caring has an agenda. You're not present, you're performing, and performance kills polarity. Masculine energy doesn't chase validation. It assumes value and moves forward. The more you try to prove yourself, the more you communicate that you're unsure, and uncertainty is contagious. She starts questioning what she was initially drawn to, even if nothing bad happened. Attraction doesn't die in explosions. It fades in small moments where you overreach. Here's the part no one tells you. Women don't lose attraction because you're interested. They lose attraction because your interest costs you your center. The second your mood depends on her reply time, your confidence leaks. The second you rewrite a text 3 times to avoid losing her, your spine bends. You might think you're being careful. What you're actually doing is telegraphing that. You don't trust yourself to handle rejection. And if you don't trust yourself, why should she? Think of attraction like a fire. It needs oxygen, not fuel dumped on all at once. When you crowd it, it suffocates. When you step back into your own life, it breathes. This is why pulling away sometimes makes her lean in. Not because you're manipulating, but because you've stopped asking the fire to heat you. You're warm on your own. She gets to decide whether to step closer. Most guys hear this and panic. They think it means being cold, distant, or playing games. That's not it. It's about orientation. Are you oriented toward your purpose, your body, your direction, or toward her reaction? If your attention is glued to how she feels about you, you're already off balance. She senses that you're looking at her like a mirror instead of a woman. No one wants to be someone else's source of identity. Here's a challenge you probably won't like. The next time you feel the urge to send the follow-up text, don't. Sit with the discomfort. Notice how much of your self-worth is trying to crawl into that message. Ask yourself what you'd be doing right now if she wasn't in the picture. Then do that, not to get her back, to get yourself back. Because the man she was attracted to wasn't monitoring his phone. He was busy being someone. This doesn't mean you disappear or act aloof. It means when you show up, you're grounded. Your words aren't trying to secure an outcome. You're not selling. You're expressing. There's a massive difference. Expression is clean. Selling is sticky. One invites curiosity. The other triggers resistance. She doesn't pull away because you said you liked her. She pulls away because she felt you needed her to like you back. And once that need shows up, everything you do gets filtered through. Compliments feel heavy. Questions feel interrogative. Silence feels anxious. You start filling space that didn't need filling. You think you're connecting, but you're actually collapsing the distance that makes connection possible. Attraction lives in that distance, that sense that you're choosing her, not clinging to her. The brutal truth is that trying too hard is just fear in disguise. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Fear of missing your chance. And fear always asks, it never leads. If you want her to feel something again, you don't fix it by adding effort. You fix it by removing desperation. You let go of the outcome and return to movement. You let your life pull you forward instead of letting her pull you off your axis. Because the moment you stop trying to be chosen, you become choosable again. There's a moment most men remember, but rarely understand. She used to text you first. She used to laugh harder. She used to look at you like she was leaning into something. Then one day, nothing dramatic happens. No fight, no clear rejection, just a subtle cooling. Shorter replies. Delayed responses. A vague busy, and your instinct is to close the gap. You start asking more questions. You offer reassurance she didn't ask for. You explain your intentions. You think clarity will save you. It doesn't. It finishes the job. What's happening? Underneath is simple and brutal. Attraction needs contrast. It needs the sense that you are moving somewhere, whether she joins you or not. When you slow down to match her pace, when you orbit her mood, you flatten that contrast. You turn the dynamic into a negotiation instead of a pull. And negotiations don't spark desire. They drain it. Think back to when things felt effortless. You weren't calculating. You weren't monitoring. You said what you meant and then went back to your life. That wasn't confidence as a tactic. It was confidence as a byproduct of direction. You had somewhere to be internally. When that disappears, she feels it before you do. Her body registers the shift long before her mind makes excuses for it. Now imagine a different scene. Same woman, same setting. But this time, you're not leaning forward. You're relaxed in your chair, shoulders open, breath slow. You listen without grabbing. You smile without needing the smile returned. When there's a pause, you let it hang. You don't rush to fill it. Inside, there's no script running. No scoreboard, just presence. That calm doesn't come from pretending not to care. It comes from knowing you'll be fine either way. And that knowing is magnetic. Here's where most guys get it wrong again. They think this is about technique, about acting indifferent, about withholding affection to trigger pursuit. That's still need, just dressed up as strategy. Women can smell that too. The difference between grounded and guarded is intention. Guarded men are still reacting. Grounded men are rooted. One is a pose. The other is a state. When you try too hard, you're not just over-investing in her, you're under-investing in yourself. You've put her response above your rhythm. You've made her interest the signal for whether you're doing life right. That's a lot of pressure to put on another human being. She didn't sign up to be your emotional thermostat. So she pulls. Back to breathe. Notice how attraction returns when you stop monitoring. When you take a day to train, to work, to build, to focus. When you stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You come back lighter, less loaded. You don't need anything from the interaction. And suddenly she's more open. Not because you changed tactics, but because you changed weight. You're not leaning on her anymore. There's an internal shift you have to make, and it's uncomfortable. You have to accept that you can't control attraction. You can only create the conditions where it naturally exists. Control-seeking behaviors, over-texting, explaining, chasing clarity are all attempts to reduce uncertainty. But uncertainty is where desire lives. When you try to eliminate it, you eliminate the charge dot, so the next time you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, that urge to do something to fix the vibe, pause. Ask yourself what you're afraid will happen if you don't act. Usually the answer is simple. You're afraid she'll drift away. And here's the paradox. If she's going to drift away, chasing won't stop it. It only guarantees that when she leaves, you won't recognize yourself. Attraction isn't built by convincing someone to stay. It's built by being someone who doesn't abandon himself to keep them. That's the line most men cross without noticing. They compromise their posture, their boundaries, their pace, all in the name of connection. But connection that requires self-erasure isn't connection. It's dependency with good marketing. You don't regain attraction by pulling tricks. You regain it by returning to alignment, by letting your yes mean yes and your no mean no, by not explaining your worth, by not shrinking your world to fit her attention span. When you're aligned, your actions are clean. You invite without pulling. You care without clinging. You walk forward without checking who's watching. And here's the part that stings the most. Sometimes, even when you do everything right internally, she still doesn't come back. That's not failure. That's filtering. Attraction isn't a moral reward. It's a response to fit and timing and polarity. Your job isn't to force it. Your job is to stay intact while it reveals itself. Because the real win isn't getting her attention again. It's realizing you don't need to contort yourself to be wanted. The moment you stop trying to hold her interest together with effort is the moment you either lose her cleanly or attract her honestly. And either outcome beats slowly disappearing while standing right in front of her dot. The question isn't how to make her feel something. It's whether you're willing to feel your own ground again, even if it means she walks. Here's the truth most men never hear, because it doesn't sell hope, it sells responsibility. Attraction doesn't disappear because you weren't enough. It disappears because you stopped being you. Not the polite version, not the optimized version. The real one who moved without checking in, who spoke without cushioning every edge, who didn't need permission to take up space. When you abandon that man to secure approval, the approval dries up, not as punishment. As consequence, think about how often you edit yourself once you care. You soften opinions. You delay decisions. You wait to see how she feels before you feel anything at all. You tell yourself you're being considerate. But what you're really doing is outsourcing your authority. And the moment you do that, the polarity flips. She becomes the reference point. You become the satellite. Desire doesn't orbit satellites. There's a specific energy that shows up when a man is trying too hard, and it's not eagerness. It's tension, a tightness in the jaw, a laugh that comes from the chest instead of the belly, words that land a half-inch off because they're filtered through fear. Women don't analyze this. They sense it. And their nervous system responds by pulling away, the same way yours would if someone stood just a little too close for too long. You might tell yourself that if you just explain how you feel, she'll understand. That if she knew your intentions were good, she wouldn't misread your effort. But attraction doesn't negotiate with intention. It responds to state. And your state is either grounded or grasping. There's no in-between. You can't talk your way out of a collapsed posture. This is where the rebuild starts, and it's quieter than you expect. Step 1 is reclaiming your internal lead. That means you decide how you feel before you check her reaction. You don't ask questions to get reassurance. You ask because you're curious. You don't compliment to be liked. You compliment because something genuinely moved you. If it's not clean, you don't say it. You let silence do the work. Step 2 is letting your actions create the message. You stop narrating your interest. You stop hinting at exclusivity before it exists. You let time, consistency, and your presence speak. This doesn't make you distant. It makes you solid. There's a difference. Distance is absence with anxiety. Solidity is presence without need. One pushes her away. The other gives her something. To lean into step 3 is accepting loss without scrambling. This is the hardest part because it cuts directly into ego. When she pulls back, you don't chase. You don't punish. You don't perform detachment. You stay the same man you were before the shift. Calm, forward-moving, self-directed. That steadiness is rare. And rarity is attractive. Notice how this has nothing to do with her specifically. That's the point. The moment your behavior becomes about managing her feelings, you've already lost the frame. Your job isn't to keep her interested. Your job is to live in a way that interest either arises or doesn't. When you're aligned, you don't need to convince. You allow. There's a scene that plays out again and again. A man finally stops trying, not as a tactic, but because he's tired of betraying himself. He refocuses on his body, his work, his mission. He speaks less, but says more. He stops explaining and starts choosing. And weeks later, sometimes months, a message comes in. Curious, warm, different, not because he waited, because he changed orientation. But here's the catch. If you're doing this to get the message, you're still trying too hard. The shift only works when it's real, when you're okay if the message never comes. That's the paradox that separates growth from manipulation. One is about becoming. The other is about control. Women respond to the first and recoil from the second. So when you feel that urge to prove, pause. When you feel the need to secure, breathe. Ask yourself if what you're about to do moves you closer to yourself or further away. Attraction follows self-respect like a shadow follows a body. You don't chase the shadow. You stand in the light, and if you take nothing else from this, take this. You don't get her back by showing her how much you care. You get her back by showing yourself that you don't abandon your spine for anyone. You don't get her back by waiting. You get her back by never needing her again.